Hey, good evening, good evening. So glad to finally be here amongst friends, family, I would even say, as much as I've known some of you. I'm Waldo, and today I'm going to teach you all how to get rich. Rich. Isn't that the dopamine hit on testosterone pro? Money. Money, guys. I'm fixing to teach y'all how to get money, right? Dopamine. No, I'm just kidding. I hate money. I am from the mud. I'm from South Georgia. I was born and raised Southern Baptist around some of the most closed minds you could ever meet. And things are tight. And I can pretty much say I'm probably speaking to a mirror when I say this, but it was hard to think, and we'll put it like that, for a lot of growing up. So when you don't have a lot of money and it's really hard to think, you can sometimes start to hate money. It's a lot easier to cope with not having it, right? So I hate money, but I'm about to teach you guys how to get rich. All right. Because rich to me is defined in a whole nother way. Let's go ahead and move on here. So the topic of my presentation is called Sigma Mining on DERO. DERO, you may hear me say DERO. I'm Southern. It's going to come out my accent because I'm comfortable with you guys. It only took a day. It's crazy. I'm going to preface this before I get into Sigma Mining on DERO by saying to each and every one of you guys, I'm blown away. I'm in Raph's camp when he said that he expected a room full of boomers and cave dwellers. And I've been in the online gaming community. I know people who like anonymity. They're hideous. But guys out there listening to this room is full of beautiful people. Absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. I'm not talking just mentally. These guys are aesthetically fucking hot. Sorry for my French. And we're going to move on. I told y'all I was going to embarrass you. All right. So Sigma mining on DERO. It's a little misnomer, Sigma mining, because the way we use it now isn't true to the terminology. So Sigma is, let's get back to that in just a second. Does all you got are, I'm going to speak like you don't know what mining is. What is mining? So we'll go with the OG Bitcoin. About 712 times a day, Bitcoin comes out and says, well, we'll bring it back a little further. In a cryptocurrency, you're a lot like a built job. Think warehouse. Captain was the architect, or they were the architect. They came, they built the floors, they built the walls. It's nice, it's spacious. And then you got the workers. Man, these workers. They are the hardest workers you've ever seen. A union, they wouldn't be able to touch these workers. They're much stronger and harder working than a union. They work so hard that their bosses can't even complain about them. If their boss complains, the people making the transactions are the bosses in the warehouse. The person that comes and pays them will say, their work is too good, bro. You're out of here. So we're workers in a giant warehouse. That's what a miner is. And with Sigma mining, I can say to mine is like a race. And in that race, you got to start where you're building up your speed or your hash. And at the end of it, you're rewarded if you get to the end before everybody else. In a sense, that's kind of what you do when you're mining. The boss comes out and he says, hey, I have this reward, or whoever can bring me a copy of all the transactions or all everything that's happening in here. And it be the most work. And the miners rush up And, the fastest one gets it there. It's like, hey, I got it. Here's your reward. See you again in 17 minutes if it's Bitcoin, right? So with Sigma, the rewards aren't so static. You don't have to run around this giant track knowing that somebody like Usain Bolt has placed ahead of you and is way ahead of you. You got to catch that guy. And then there's a linear end. And you're going to make it to that end. And Bolt's already been there. So you got to restart. Not with Sigma mining. Just a second. When I get nervous, my mouth dries out. But I'm excited. Okay. So with Sigma mining, the rewards are distributed. Like, think when you get to the end of that race, there's the line that keeps going. And the winner has to go back around and catch up to another race because there's several races. With DERO now, it's 10. Under Sigma mining, officially, it's a lot more. You could have 20. And what am I talking 10, 20? What are these digits? They're called mini blocks. So what the developers did here in DERO was take the block and broke it up into mini blocks. And as I said initially, the mini blocks were in the 20s. And then there was an additional set, to do some extra verifications. But what they found that caused was a lot of delay, a lot of buildup for the small guys, and the small guys is what's really going to change this, the smaller nodes. So by breaking that up, you think getting to the end of that race, you don't have to just restart. You can keep on going, and all that work and all that running you've done, it means something because there's another finish line coming up. There's 9 more. And you can get to that really, really easily because the people who are a lot faster than you will have to come back and run that track again. It's just a visual representation. That's not what's going on in the code. The code is a dizzying spectacle of electricity. And I quote my boy Secret for that one. So, why Sigma mining is the future? Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm a firm believer that universe rewards value. And by offering mini blocks instead of a single block reward, you get over a hurdle. And there's a huge hurdle, and we'll get to that in the next slide. I'll be able to elaborate a little further on it. With domination of hardware. So there's a big market for mining out there, and there's a lot of people, really smart people, who have gotten SHA-250, whatever, 256 to a science. They've got these machines that can do it better than anybody have ever believed, way better than your laptop could ever do, way better than your gaming one at that. And it's a big thing for miners. I'm sure a lot of you that have mined can kind of relate, and we'll cover that a little more. So a couple of these points on this slide aren't correct in a technical sense, just in the way that I understand them. So if you guys are looking at this and trying to maybe record it as a truth, for example here, miners are rewarded with newly created crypto coins and transaction fees for their efforts. That's just the way that I understand it and the way that I could explain it to you guys. That's not exactly how it works with the code. As I said, the boss will come out and say, "Hey, I need this proof right here, and I got this reward for you," and everybody's rushing to provide that. That's what creates the rewards. So validating that. All right. So what that does is whenever you have miners presenting the ledger or a copy of all the transactions, it prevents double spending because assuming you have a lot of miners on the network, it compares to each one of them, and everybody has a copy. And if any copy is out, it knows to kick that out. It's not part of the group. So validating those transactions is what stops the double spend on any cryptocurrency. And without a miner, that doesn't happen. So none of it's safe. You can have this big warehouse with all these snooty patooty bosses, but with no hard-working miners, nothing's going to get done. So security and decentralization. That's nothing I got to explain to any of you guys here. It's a core, as I've discovered through our group talks. It's a core philosophy, a core principle for all of you sitting here. So to be decentralized is nothing that I'm going to go into in great depth. So anybody with the right hardware and software can participate in the way that mining is set up with DERO, because it's broken down into these mini blocks. Now, before I get into this part, a little bit of backstory. I have been into crypto now for a little bit, maybe since 2012 is when I first heard the term and was interested in it, because I thought, man, I could make money with that, So I stumbled across a couple of change in a Bitcoin, and that was way out of my league. I think it was $500 when I first heard about it, and that was out of my league. I hated money. And what else was there? I think a couple of small coins. That was my mentality. If I can buy into a small coin, it'll capitalize. So I grabbed one of the small coins and was studying that. And then I stumbled across some of the work of Raph. He was spoken here, and he was talking about Pirate Chain at the time. And pleasure to have Pirate Chain among us here in the conference. And that led me down a rabbit hole of Reddit and Pirate Chain community. And I met some really, really wise people there in terms of privacy and decentralization. They told me the right ways. And it wasn't of the UTXO blockchain that I was looking at the time, that's for sure. I said all that to say, I met a really great friend there in that Reddit forum. And he's an OG of Pirate, as I've come to know, Scott from the future. Scott not from the future in Discord. And I'm going to quote a conversation that we had a while back, and I'll get to the exact time frames here in just a second. Come on. Where are you? All right, here we go. So we were talking in general about proof of work algorithms and ASICs, and I think I had asked him a question about ASICs dominating the majority of the chain of Pirate's chain. And his response was, in proof of work algorithms, if you have an ASIC-friendly algo, it is in the interest for the manufacturers to make the most powerful miner and sell it to the public. This creates a situation for miners to be selfish and earn more. They must keep updating their gear, and each time they do, it strengthens the network from attacks. By fighting ASIC, you create a situation where you must stay a step ahead. Once an ASIC is detected, you must create a new algorithm and switch the network. This is dangerous because each time you do so, you risk breaking something or you introduce new unknown bugs. You have created a situation where you have now incentivized a manufacturer to create an ASIC in secret. And this will weaken your network due to chaining and having to artificially keep the difficulty low. To not get in too much weeds, the sum of it was, in other words, you created a situation where people are acting selfish and incentivized to break your system rather than support it. And at the time, that went way over my head because I didn't really know what an ASIC was. I know they costed a lot. I knew I got scammed trying to buy one from a Duke Cannon Avalon miner site. But I had no idea. But being invited to this talk, I had to learn. So, a little bit about how the mini blocks are rewarded here. Every 18 seconds. There. Oh, okay. Thank you, Bessa. All right. Now, a little bit about how the blocks are rewarded here on DERO. So every 18 seconds, a block is, the boss comes out and say, "Hey, I got a reward for you guys with the most work." And because it's broken down into 10 mini blocks, essentially every 1.8, 1.9 seconds, a mini block is created. So you have that many more opportunities to get paid. This makes sure that everything's happened quick, really quick. If you've done any transaction, that DERO can settle sometimes before you even click over to look back at your wallet. And we compete to add blocks, preventing network control by malicious actors. So, nobody can just come in and try to 51 it due to each one of us being decentralized in the fact that we're all mining to our own nodes. Hopefully, if you can do that with the setup that you have, and we actually are incentivized to do that with DERO because the 10th mini block is rewarded to whoever's node you're mining to. So if you're not mining to your own node, that big 10th block reward that is the end of the block. It's the one with the most difficulty. It's the hardest block. You need that block to kind of close it all out. And anyway, kind of lost where I was going with that one. So we'll just move to the next point here. All right, so the network. All right, so we're gonna, in this slide, I think what it was like a hypothetically speaking. Let's just say the network hash rate is about 3 gigahashes. You divide that by the amount of rewards that are produced today, which is about 48,000 mini blocks that are produced, and you can get so that's how that works. So about 62.5 kilohashes will get you one reward daily if the network was at 3 gigahashes. To try to scale that down a little bit, 3.25 kilohashes will get you a mini block every 2 days, and all the way down, about 2 kilohashes will get you one about every 7.8 days, based on personal experience. And that just kind of clarifies how the rewards are produced and what timely fashions that they follow. So now we're going to get into the different devices that you can use to mine the network with. And I'll kind of unpack a little bit more about the conversation me and Scott had, because he was really right when he said, by fighting ASIC, you have to stay a step ahead, and you have to build like this giant wall. The wall has to keep getting higher and higher. Like Captain designed a fortress. Like it's in penetrating the fortress will bring great results for everybody. And that's going to move us right into our next slide. So you could do this with household devices, and I don't know the restrictions here. I think I've seen Google Pixel 6s that are able to hash with 1,000 hashes. I have had success on all of my desktops and laptops. Keep in mind, there are risks that you run to the hardware if it's not properly cooled or ventilated, and you use electricity. So if you're in a situation where your electricity is a little bit more expensive, or to spare that expense, then it's totally understandable to try to stay away from mining with all of your household devices. Just use your phone or something, right, while it's charging. Yeah, that was the warning. Next up, and I guess while I'm here on household devices, I'll try to mention, go back to the fact where Captain designed the mini blocks. Well, I guess I never really said that. The mini blocks were turned off essentially to 10. It was capped at 10. It was 20. He took that off to help the slower nodes and the household devices. To me, this is just my understanding of it. And got all of a sudden away with anxiety. So sorry. Okay. So he wanted this to eventually be able to be installed on household devices like your router or your fridge or something of that nature, if it was a smart fridge. So that's essentially why he capped it down to 10. All right, mining rigs. They're these mining rigs are hardware devices that are specialized for an algorithm. The people who make these chip by chip designed these with the algorithm in mind. They can be customized with GPUs. It could be a bunch of GPUs rigged up together. It could be. I'm assuming you could go on with that as much money as you could afford to, as long as you had a way to keep it cool. They're versatile and can switch between mining different currencies. Not sure why you would want to do that, depending on whatever your hardware and software configuration was. The dreaded botnet servers is another way that you can mine DERO. And to my knowledge, this is not advice because it's illegal and everywhere. But I'm sure if it can be done, it will be done, right? Botnet servers are like malware. They get in your computer. If you have no protection, you'll never know it. And they'll do things, whatever they design the malware to do. And a lot of people design them to mine cryptos. It's not ethical, highly illegal, as I mentioned before. But I thought I would throw this in here because that is a way that people mine. It's an advantage that people try to gain. And I'll wrap up in the end here why that won't matter. That's if you want to make money. I'm trying to teach you how to get rich. All right, these are ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits for the Wheaties. These are kind of like your GPUs if you were to stack a bunch of GPUs together and use that as a rig. Except this is a little more specified. They're efficient and powerful when you're trying to hone it in on whatever you have it specified for. A lot of them are designed to match Bitcoin because that's the one that'll get you the most money. But they're very expensive. I found that out doing a bit of research into some of the products back when I mentioned I'd gotten scammed, and they're pretty expensive. Even some of the older, outdated ones are like $400 to $500. People use these to mine. All right, FPGAs are also used to mine as well. A field programmable gate array is what that's called. They're hardware devices that can be programmed to perform a specific mining algorithm. Now, this goes a step further than the ASIC. This takes it down to the processing level. Which when you design an FPGA for a specific currency, I don't think it's going to be able to change much. You're targeting that currency, and people make these all the time for Bitcoin and the big name because they make a lot of money. Let's see. Did I say? Cool. All right. So the conclusion, why I told you all of that, because I'm gonna be honest with you. All of that big fancy hardware, none of that's needed. And the reasons for that is the quote here. In the coming months or years that Astro BWT is optimized are shown to have a significant performance boost on FPGAs, ASICs, or GPUs that would be a benefit for everyone. Such an advancement could even trigger the next revolution in bioinformatics, signal processing, DNA sequencing, or other numerous domains where BWT is used. Since Astro BWT will not only serve as an ASIC, FPGA, and GPU-resistant algorithm, but it will also succeed in helping scientific research if it is optimized for these things. Okay, so miners on Sigma, we earn DERO. And the reason DERO isn't money is because DERO is an actual currency. Currency derived from the word current can be found in nature, more specifically the ocean. And it's what makes things flow. A real system of value is to me a currency, and I've learned that over this event. It was actually fleshed out by one of the speakers earlier. That happens automatically. It's because my hands are so sweaty. So if anybody can set an ASIC to DERO's BWT or an FPGA, for example, you can have groundbreaking revolutions in technology. And I have a couple of things here that I was able to garner doing a bit of research on what kind of technologies those could be. Telemedicine was one of them. Natural language processing and voice recognition was another. Genomic and DNA sequencing. And the one that drew me most to was music compression and audio streaming. So basically what that means is if you are able to tune a device to get up on our network, you're going to revolutionize these fields that I just mentioned. And these fields being revolutionized are truly, truly impactful for an entire society. If you could think of how sound is compressed, you lose a lot of your sound due to the compression mechanisms because there's nothing out there that can process all the minutiae and details of the sound. Sliding back. So it's actually encouraged for people to come and try to crack this BWT. Burroughs-Wheeler transformation is a mammoth. When I first seen it and tried to understand it, it reminded me of the guy in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's got the boards and pointing to everything. It's a mammoth. So anybody that can come and get the up and up on that, please do so. The future is now, because there is no tomorrow. I did leave a little bit of time, I guess, to take some QA. I was trying to make this last at least 30 minutes. So if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to take them.
He says there's an end up dead. You're probably gonna need this. Sorry, it's so sweaty because you can basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned routers being used. Like, how is that possible? I'm because I've only seen basically the ASICs, like the big rigs and stuff like that. So, and then of course I can.
To mine, I don't think he meant. I don't think he meant that with mining. I think he was more relaying that to hosting a node. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to double check on that and get back with you. But you don't want to use your router to mine for sure.
Old routers, because I have like dozens of them. Like that's why I was like, what?
I mean, eventually, any like a router has a chip, like has a processor inside it. So if you can hack the firmware, you can basically make it do mining. It's probably not going to be very powerful because they're not very, very powerful. But hosting a node, I guess it would be enough, probably, to host a node, yeah.
Thank you, Bessa.
I'm just kind of curious, what about Astro BWT makes it difficult for ASICs or FPGAs to solve it faster? Like, what about the algorithm makes it difficult for that type processor?
Great question. I don't know that it makes it more difficult. It de-incentivizes it. So the 10th mini block is at a very higher, very much exponentially higher difficulty than all of the other 9 mini blocks. So it would make no sense to me to point an ASIC at a chain that isn't going to give you that dominant edge. You know, why would you want to point it at this and not Bitcoin or something, else? So essentially, I would say that the 10th mini block is what kind of deters that with an extremely large difficulty. And the fact that there's 9 other mini blocks kind of deters that as well. It doesn't really make it more difficult, so to speak. It just de-incentivizes it. I hope that answered the question. Don't hold any of this in stone either. Feel free to check with some of the other people in the community, because this is just my understanding of it.
So since ASICs are de-incentivized to be used on mining DERO, does that mean that solo mining is easier? I do have mining pools in DERO. I'm sorry, I'm still new to DERO,
Yeah, it's a great question, and I was meaning to cover that in the talk, so it gives me a time to flesh that out now. Essentially, the entire pool, or the entire chain, is like a pool. You can join a mining pool. There are some community-hosted mining pools for those people who can't point their miner at the node for very long, or whatever your situation may be for having to pull up. But and I guess a good way to kind of answer that is something to do with this section of the pamphlet here under Sigma mining. And I don't quite understand it, but I'm sure it has something to play here because of the law of large numbers. Give me a second here. Okay.
But basically, solo mining's profitable on DERO, right? Because it's really not worth it on a lot of UTXO chains and stuff.
No, and I'm just trying to think of how I can say that, because you can point your device to your node and mine, and essentially get access to these blocks. It just makes no sense to point it at a pool unless you don't have a lot of time to point your miner at your node, because the entire chain is in a sense a pool, but with the mini block system.
So what are you mining with?
I use an old gaming laptop. It's an Omen. I use an old desktop, two old desktops, and an old Acer. And I have a broken, I think it's a Pixel 7 so far. I'm trying to get everything I can. I have like 4 or 5 more devices that I gotta fix, but they're extremely expensive to fix these days, believe it or not. say.
You spoke about the last mini block being the hardest to close. What will increase your chances of closing the last mini block? Is it the hash rate? Is it your computer's processing power? Like what actually makes that? Because the one thing that I saw when I got on the DERO thing last night, I finally got on the Discord, and I don't know if I clicked on the mining or if it was in something else, but somebody was complaining about finishing the majority of it, but somebody else always closing it.
Okay, I think I
And
remember what you were
kinda-
talking about.
I was like, oh, you probably got a slow computer, but like I actually don't know. So what actually makes it easier to or more consistently to close the last mini block if that's the hardest one?
It's just the proof of work. So the longer you have your miner pointed at the node, it builds up hash rate. So once a mini block is found, you don't have to go back to the start and discard all of the hash rate that you were working on. You get to keep that, so to speak, all of that speed. Move on to the next, hopefully finding the next one or the next one. And as you keep moving, trying to find those blocks, that hash rate continues to increase until you get to a point to where you're at that last block and you got a lot of work built up. And like you were saying, some people can customize their miner to, I guess, grab all the other minis and avoid that 10th one because it's more efficient to do so. But it pushes that hard reward or that hard block off to somebody else. And when they find it, because it was so much harder to find, they now have a higher proof of work built up. And it actually works out for the smaller miner to mine that block. To me, I think so. Yes, you want it pointed at the node as much as possible.
So the longer you go without completing a final block, the more likely you are to
Find a block. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just touch just quickly on a basic idea behind increasing. What ideally in blockchain, what you want to do is increase the amount of blocks, but obviously that comes with the downside of sort of security, because you obviously smaller block times, aka you basically have more opportunities to attack and chain split. So this is kind of just a way to increase a number of block rewards while kind of trying to mitigate the security risk with that. And so the idea behind increasing solo mining is, like Waldo said, it's the law of large numbers. So it's just the basic law that if you flip a coin, 4 times in a row, you might get 4 heads in a row. But if you flip a coin 4,000 times in a row, the chances of you getting to a 50-50 balance is a lot higher. This is called the law of large numbers. So what DERO tries to do, as Waldo says, is it just increases the amount of blocks that we can earn whilst trying to mitigate security. So it therefore makes solo mining possible by just having more opportunity to mine blocks. Therefore, we get closer to kind of reaching a balance with the law of large numbers. Therefore, distribution of the rewards are just more balanced, right, for solo mining. So the penalty for solo mining is minimized. And I just wanted to comment a bit on that because it's.
Thank you for fleshing that out.
It's a tough thing to understand that, but it really is just based on that. So and trying to, like blockchain, kind of trying to balance it with the give and the take.
So I love mining. I love mining DERO. I love those minis like you wouldn't believe. Those little guys. So I mine. And I was actually speaking to, some of the people who have questions about mining. I first built instructions on how to mine on your Android device and how to launch a miner, essentially just using free open source software. And then I have 3 devices that are currently mining like all the time. And being somebody who's just like a regular Joe Schmo that has like a couple old phones that sit there and like earn rewards from just sitting there. They don't do anything other than just mine DERO, and like being able to communicate that to other people in my house. Like, hey, you see these phones right here?
to like keeping this blockchain secure and being able to be rewarded for that is really cool, especially when you win the gas fees that are included in the block. And you only get that when you get the integrator block, which is the hardest block, which you have the most incentive to win. So it's a cool mechanism.
Thank you for that. I did not know that the gas fees were included in the integrator block. I'm still learning about my topic.
Are there somewhere where we can find benchmarks or, I don't know, template setups? For example, like if you want to build a rig with Raspberry Pis or with phones, is there some examples of the gains you can get? Yeah.
I have seen a site for benchmarks. It was floating around the Discord. I didn't save it. I'll pull it up and bring it to you personally.
Sure, thanks.
And you said the second part of that was there builds?
Yeah, maybe. No, it was kind of following my question. If you would, an example, like if you would build a rig with Raspberry Pis or whatever, how much performance would we have? How much gain would we have from that?
I see.
Yeah, it's just well, we'll see if we get that on benchmark.
I'll bring those benchmark sites to you and we'll check it out.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So in the same line of thinking, I was thinking of running it the same way, but instead of using Raspberry 5, I would use RISC-V, the new open hardware CPU that are being available and sold as a development kit similarly to Raspberry Pi, because the instruction set on the CPU is customizable in similar way than DERO is when it builds an application. So you can only use the instruction set that you need to run the DERO node. So to me, it seems logical that performance on RISC-V will be the highest.
Okay.
But that's to be tested.
Okay. I would love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we haven't tested on Pi yet, have we?
I don't know. I don't know of any tests, any current tests. Maybe when it was first launched, they were doing some testing with hosting it on Pi, but I'm not sure of anything currently. Yeah.
I mean, they're using the same kind of architecture for processor than mobile phone. So it's ARM as well. So I would think they will perform similarly. Yeah. But then, running a cluster kind of will, and it's being done also like in other project as a mining operation.
Okay.
You mentioned it takes 65 kilohash to get 1 DERO.
That was assuming that the network hash was 3 gigahashes.
Okay. As the network hash increase, that value increase as well to get 1 DERO back, or?
Yeah, if it was to go up over 3 gigahashes, you would need a lot more than 67 kilohashes to get 1 mini block a day, depending on how high it goes.
With your operation that you have, did you get close to that number, or?
Oh, I wish. That's insane. That's insanity. I with my operation, I may have 7 kh. I don't have a lot.
Right, so the race is open.
To compare, the M1 Mac is like at about 1.5 kilohertz. So kilohash, sorry. So is that yeah? So you would need to reach that, you would need a lot.
Yeah.
I don't need the calculations.
You probably need about 8 days or so.
Is it 40 max for one or something like 1.5? Would it be? How many max like this would you need to get 1 DERO per day? One mini block
a day. Maybe about 7 or 8, and you'd have one popping up on one of those bad boys every morning.
Yeah.
Has that changed like in the last year? Because I have the same computer and I was getting 1 mini block a day.
You were very lucky.
Oh, yeah, I felt lucky at that time.
your hash power is much lower. But 1 year ago, the hash power was
Yeah. Yeah, we need recent benchmark to be able to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say the last time I looked at the network hash, it was at 400 mH, 438 mH.
Okay.
That's very low, and in comparison to other chains.
Yeah. It's gonna go up.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Any more questions? I do look forward to speaking and chatting with all of you guys on the fly. I'm way better at speaking and conversing that way. Thanks so much for listening to my talk.